My name is Henry Roberts. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I am a mental health advocate. I became an advocate after spending several years in a depressed state after a significant life change that happened to me. And after I healed myself, I wanted to get out there and help educate others that there is help available and you don't have to remain silent and live in silence and live in pain, that you can get help no matter what your situation is. There's someone that can help you. And the other big thing is I want to help break down the stigmas of mental health. One of the biggest things is people are just afraid to talk about mental health. Or if someone comes to you and says, I'm struggling, or I want to end my life, or I feel worthless, no one ever really knows what to say to these people or how to handle it or process that information. So I feel the more we can talk about these conversations, the more people will open up. And I've experienced that even through social media, just sharing some of my stories. I've had quite a few people message me that they've felt the same thing or they've experienced something similar, or hearing me talk about my struggles has encouraged them to get more help or seek more help, or maybe they struggle with a loved one that's suffering from a mental health illness and they seek guidance on where they can go to get help. And so it's a very rewarding feeling to be able to help others after having what I went through, kind of thing. So but basically, what happened to me was I I grew up in Northern California. My dad was a firefighter, and I had been a firefighter out in California, a volunteer firefighter, and joined the Air Force. Got out here in Omaha, and joined the volunteer fire department here in Bellevue. And so I spent 23 years, a combination of volunteer firefighting, and then we switched to a paid part-time program. And in the year 2013, I came down with rheumatoid arthritis and asthma, and that put an end to my firefighting career. So at that time, I was about 38 years old, and I had that's all. First 38 years of my life, all I had ever thought about was firefighting. That was my one true passion. That was my identity. That's who I was. It's who my kids told their friends. My dad's a firefighter. Everyone knew me as a firefighter. And one day, I'm on the outside. I'm no longer a firefighter, and that put me in a pretty bad spot mentally. I didn't know what to do with my life. It wasn't what I did to make money. I had other jobs, so I wasn't in fear of not having a place to live, really to feed my kids. But it was my passion, and so I started seeking things that I could do to take my mind off of being no longer a firefighter. And I started getting into some woodworking. I have a little shed in the backyard. I have some tools in there. And I started, when I was woodworking, I needed something to listen to in the background. And so I started finding some podcasts, and particularly in the agricultural community. And I started listening to a lot of these farmers talk about their stories and their struggles. And I kind of realized that my story was very similar to theirs, other than I was a firefighter, they were a farmer. But it was the first kind of moment that I ever realized that, there's other people like me. This wasn't just me feeling these feelings I was feeling. There was other people in the same boat. So along came a day, I heard a gal named Leslie Kelly. She's from Canada, and she's a very big mental health advocate. She was going to be on a podcast called the Ag State of Mind podcast, and that's run by a guy named Jason Meadows down in Missouri. Very good podcast. So I started listening to it, and everything he talked about, I could relate to my life. And I found it healing myself by listening to him talk about mental health so openly. And eventually came a day where there was a guy by the name of Jeff Ditzenberger who was on Jason's podcast, the Ag State of Mind podcast. And I was listening to Jeff tell his story. And at the end of it, I reached out to Jeff, sent him a friend request on Facebook, and him and I got to talking and found out we had a lot in common. Both had been in California, both had been volunteer firefighters, both had been in the military. So we became pretty good friends. And through him, he runs an organization called Tugs, which is a mental health organization to help others. And I started just feeling better about myself between talking with Jason and talking with Jeff and talking to some other farmers that I've met through social media. I was able to kind of forget all about not being a firefighter, and I had a new focus in life. And that new focus became talking about mental health and helping to educate other people and helping just grow this community. And it's kind of it's a new beginning in life for me, I guess I would say. And that's kind of where we're at today.
And could you talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing today?
So I run a website. It's called hankwade.com, and on there I have it's a blog. So I type about either things I've learned, things I've seen, things I want to comment on, and it kind of covers the agricultural community as well as the mental health community. So I try to break it up. But on that website, there's resources that people can go to if they, don't know where to go from help. I have links on there and information that people can reach out. Things like the National Suicide Hotline, other resources for mental health, and I just try to add things that I've learned and done on there. I hope in the future to go out and create a few projects. One of the things I like to do is raise some funds and make little magnets and go to trade shows that has information on there where farmers can throw that magnet on the dash of a tractor, or they could, if they're struggling, they could reach out and see that magnet and know where they can go get information to get help. And the idea kind of came from back in the day before the 911 existed. Everyone usually had a piece of paper next to the phone with the phone number to the local sheriff, the fire department, the hospital, you know. So if you ever were in an emergency, you go by the phone, there was a piece of paper, you knew who to call. But we need to do stuff like that for mental health. We need to get the word out there that okay, I'm having a problem, or my wife is having a problem, or my kids. Who do I call? And you can't always spend hours on the internet searching. If you search mental health on Google, there's thousands and thousands of resources. Well, what do I do, or who do I call? So we want to try to narrow that down so in an emergency situation, people will know who to call, and then we can teach them about it's okay to call. Don't be afraid. So that's kind of what I've been doing lately with helping spread the information.
And I certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure the community you've built up to this point appreciates everything you've been doing. Hank, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on to Silent Journeys and sharing a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on here. It's great to see other people that have similar goals and helping educate the public and getting the word out there.
Yes, absolutely. If you would like to amplify Hank's voice and share out this episode, please do so. I appreciate the opportunity to reach out to as large an audience as possible to share these stories. I think it helps build a common understanding that we all experience these difficult times and that it's okay and that we can continue to move on. And with that, I appreciate you listening to today's episode.
Thank you very much.